Last Wednesday, my family and I went for a little test drive of the Tesla Model Y and Model 3 as a bonus, actually. Here's what happened.
1, 2, 3.
Stop! Stop, John! Son of a bitch! That is not funny!
Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. This channel is dedicated to finding out whether I really do know it all or not. If you haven't, please make sure you subscribe and definitely make sure you ask questions in the comments or at my email address. As a little bonus for everyone, I am going to be having a giveaway if we reach 500 subscribers, so definitely go ahead and subscribe if you haven't yet, because you'll have to be a subscriber just to get into the giveaway contest anyway. So look forward to that and hopefully just a couple of episodes, because let's get to 500 real fast. Okay, on to the actual test drive. So we were actually vacationing near Jacksonville, Florida, and we were doing it very socially distanced. Everything was good. So just to be clear about that, masks on everywhere, all that kind of good stuff. But anyway, as we were there and as we were close to Jacksonville, we decided to go test drive the Model Y on a Wednesday, and actually it was fairly close to rush hour, which turned out to be interesting for the test drive. So yeah, I'm going to go through the whole process and I'm going to talk through the whole test drive thing. Obviously, if you want to go do something like that, you're certainly more than welcome to if you live near a large venue that has a Tesla dealership or showroom, as the case may be. Not a dealership, they don't sell cars there, they just show them. But if you happen to be a little countrified like us, a little farther away from one of these locations, then this might actually be useful and provide some insight, or it might guide you into how you want to do a test drive in order to think about how to do it more efficiently or really look at the things that matter to you most. Initial impressions. Okay, so first of all, obviously, the first thing that happens, a first impression can't be made twice or whatever it is. There's never a second chance to make a first impression. That's the line. Anyway, Tesla feels like they took a lot of cues from the Apple Store. It's very spare. Even the logo on the front is just, Tesla. There's no other information. Inside the showroom, it's very open. I guess normally they have at least 2 cars in there, but because of the whole pandemic situation, everything's a little bit more shut down. You can see that the employees were wearing masks, so kudos for them, right? As everybody should be right now. And as far as getting in there, they had a Model Y that was in there, and they had some displays and they had some paint samples and things, so you could sort of look at how to do the interior or how to do the paint samples and kind of physically match all those things up, which is cool to be able to look at all of that. So there were a few people in there, and the salespeople were actually quite busy, which is actually a good thing, I guess. It means that there's a lot of phone work was going on. But while we were there, several groups of people came in and asked questions about the car. One person was having an issue with, I think, supercharging or something. But anyway, so they were quite busy, but they were also super pleasant, very knowledgeable, of course. It was really, really helpful to learn from them what was going on. Obviously, very low pressure. It's not a car dealership, so they're not trying to sell you a car right there. They're just trying to give you information. They're just showing you the car, and I really appreciate that. A couple of years ago, we had test-driven Tesla Model 3 in Santa Monica and had the same experience. So I knew it would be substantially nicer than going to a car dealership where, once you get in there, it's like trying to get out is trying to pry yourself out of like taffy or molasses or something to get out of the car dealership once you're there. They just want you to stay until you purchase something. So I felt like having the paint and interior swatch samples was really, really useful. It gave you a better sense of the interior and exterior of the car, because all they had in the showroom, of course, was a white car. They didn't have all the colors. So this was useful to see that. It was very nice. As far as the Model Y was concerned, because this was the first time I'd really laid eyes on one kind of in person, except for maybe from a distance driving down the road, it was substantially larger than I thought. I don't know why, but I think I had thought it was going to be a little more compact like a Model 3, but it was substantially taller was the first thing I noticed, but also just volumetrically, it just had a lot more space to it. So that was a very nice thing to see. I mean, we have a Mazda CX-5, and this felt quite comparable to that, probably a little bit more roomy than the CX-5. I also noticed that the white paint was quite attractive in person, and the reason why this makes a difference is because the white paint is the standard fare, price, whatever, but then the blue, the black, and the gray are all $1,000 extra, and the red is $2,000 extra, so it's very useful to see, is the white acceptable, or do I want to spend the extra $1,000 or $2,000 to purchase the upgraded color options? Also, we noticed that the interior of the car was very spare. In the showroom, we were kind of there for like 15 minutes because we got there a little bit early. But we couldn't get into the car because of the whole, again, pandemic situation. You could only look inside. But inside you can see, you know, it's a steering wheel, 2 stalks, and a very, very large touchscreen, which controls everything. Pretty much the whole rest of the car is extremely spare, kind of that, you know, Scandinavian furniture sort of look, right? It's very, very open, very spare. The glass roof is super cool. It's curved glass. That's impressive in its own right. I don't know how they do that because that's a hard thing to build, but it was very, very nice. Very attractive exterior. It felt like a quality car. How's that? The test drive itself. All right, so that was really, really easy to set up. I happened to call. You can also do it online, but I called in the morning. They had an afternoon time slot at 4 o'clock. So I just called. The guy set it up. He took my name. When we got there, he just scanned my driver's license. No fuss, no muss, you know, just like get in the car and he'll teach you some things. And actually that was quite useful because, of course, these cars are much more technologically there's just feature rich. How's that? Anyway, so it's not something where you're just instantly going to understand exactly how everything works. So it's very, very useful to understand all the little bells and whistles and so forth, at least the basics. I felt like the representative did a really good job because he showed us the stuff that was necessary for the test drive, but there's, you know, all kinds of other things like Sentry mode and dog mode and all of that stuff, which is not necessary for a test drive. But once you got into it, you could see on the display panel where the things were. Of course, you know, trying to like process it all and think about it, it was quite a bit, but I expect it would probably get fairly easy within a week or two. You wouldn't even notice the car anymore. It would just be stuff that you would, you know secondhand. Sort of like your phone, right? Wherever the thing is on your phone, whatever particular app or something, you just happen to know where it is almost by muscle memory. So I feel like it would be that way, even though it was a little bit overwhelming in a test drive situation. The layout of the controls. Okay, so like I said, there's only 2 stalks. It's very odd because there's no kind of like shifter thing to go into drive and reverse and park. It's you just push down on the stalk and you go into drive, you push up, you go into reverse, you push the button in, you go into park. So those are the kinds of different situations where it's a little bit different. I found it a little odd because actually, of course, we were in Jacksonville, so of course it had to threaten to rain. And I didn't know exactly where the windshield wipers were because normally the windshield wipers are, you know, on the stalks, but it was there, but there's also a thing on the touchscreen, so it was a little awkward in terms of that, but it was okay. And honestly, I think it was set up to be automatic anyway, so if there was any rain, it would have just automatically started doing the wipers. But I'm just, you know, in terms of these things, it's those kinds of just a little bit uncomfortable situations where you have a new automobile and you don't know exactly how it works. And so anyway, those are the kind of little niggles that happen. Again, I think just for the test drive, it wouldn't be an ownership issue at all. So the car we drove was the Model Y Long Range. They also have a Model Y Performance, which the guy really wanted to show us, but somebody had managed to drive over a curb with it, I think just a couple of days before that, and so it was in the shop getting repaired, so I was like, okay. Anyway, so we drove the Long Range model rather than the Performance model, which trades off faster acceleration and a little more fun and track mode and so forth for more mileage. I think there's no question that that's the model that we would go for ourselves, the Long Range over the Performance, so that wasn't that big a deal. As far as pickup was concerned, it was bang on. I got onto the highway fast enough that my wife completely freaked out. She was like, oh my God, what are you doing?
Oh, jeez. That is way too... Please brake.
That was crazy. We were doing 70 miles an hour in like no time. Wow. Right, so anyway, it was very fast getting on the highway, no problem at all. Under manual control, the car drives pretty much like a car, which is not a big, you know, I guess that's a good thing, right? It should do that. So it's a little more sporty, a little more reactive. I had it on sport steering mode, and I really prefer that. I like a sportier feel to the car. There's also kind of leisure modes and other things like that, but it was very super responsive, much more responsive than a gas car. Like the second you'd step on the accelerator, you're going, whether it's from a dead stop or whether you're going 60 miles an hour on the highway, it doesn't matter. It's gonna take off immediately. So super responsive, super sporty. I think the biggest thing that probably took a little getting used to, but I really liked it overall, was the regenerative braking. So the guy set it for me very aggressive so that I could test it out. And what that means is as soon as you take your foot off the gas pedal, it's slowing down. It doesn't coast at all. It's like you're on the gas, you take it off, and it's like, and it slows down. It will slow all the way to a stop if you have it set that way, and it will hold there, which is super cool because that means that you can, if you time it out right, and I'm sure after driving it a little while, I'd get it, but you let your foot off the gas, it will slow down to a stop at a stoplight, and then it sits there. You never, ever have to touch the brake. In fact, even during the test drive, I hardly touched the brakes, which was super cool because I was thinking like, oh my gosh, the amount of brake wear that I'm not doing right now is fantastic. Plus, I'm regenerating energy because, of course, it's using the wheel momentum to generate electricity and recharge the battery. So all of that is really good stuff. I very much enjoyed that. That was super cool. I felt like I had a really good amount of control over the car. When you're in a test drive situation, and I went on I-95, anybody who lives on the East Coast and knows I-95, it sucks, especially at rush hour. But I took it on the road at rush hour with rain threatening. On I-95, it felt really good. It was very confidence inspiring. I didn't have any moments where I was sitting there going like, oh my gosh, right? So on manual control, car is bang up. It's a great car. It feels really good. It feels really luxury. It feels like you're in control. Everything's good. Autopilot driving. Okay, so there's 3 levels of Tesla driving, I guess. There's the manual driving where you're in control. Then there's autopilot, which is more or less akin to a lot of other automobiles. Our Mazda has what's called adaptive cruise control. Autopilot's like a bigger version of that. So basically, it'll keep its lane. It will maintain the proper distance to the car in front of it. It's kind of cool. The Tesla actually has a knowledge of the speed limits around it, so you don't have to set the cruise control at all. If it's 65 miles an hour, it will maximally go 72. So it looks like it goes 7 miles an hour over maximum, which felt really good. That was very comfortable. And of course, you're keeping your hands on the wheel because you have to, because they make you, but it does everything else for you in terms of staying in the lane on highway driving. I tested it just a little bit in city traffic, and it worked just fine in city traffic too. But obviously it wouldn't be as useful for that. But if you were going on a trip, Autopilot's super, super useful, very nice. It worked about as well as I expected it to, and it had more knowledge because it knows the cars around it. You can see on the screen that, it actually knows if it's a van or a truck or a regular car. It's really, really cool how it does all that stuff. So it knows all of those things by itself as you're driving. And finally, of course, the cherry on top, the full self-driving option, because of course the test cars have full self-driving options on them. Currently, it's an $8,000 option, which is mind-numbingly expensive. So I was like, let's check this sucker out. So I did it mostly on I-95 during rush hour traffic. And the representative, I won't give away his name because I don't want him to get in trouble, but he actually gave me the most accurate thought about full self-driving that anybody has so far. He said it's like driving in a car with a student driver. And I've taught 2 teenage boys to drive, and it felt exactly like that. It's like it had the basics, but it didn't quite understand the nuances of driving. So it felt like somebody who'd only been driving for a couple of weeks, and it was very rigid about the way it was driving. It wasn't flexible at all. I'm actually going to do another episode on that in the near future about AI and the brittleness of AI and whether Tesla can ever get to full self-driving. So definitely subscribe if you want to see that, because I'll do that very shortly within the next week or 2. So the full self-driving option worked, for the most part, pretty much as you expect. It works okay. Weird situations are, it always centers itself in the lane. So let's take a situation, and again, I'm a US person, so you'd have to flip this if you were in Australia or the UK or something like that. But let's say you're in the far right-hand lane, so there's no traffic to your right, but there's traffic to your left. You would normally kind of edge towards the outside of the lane. You'd edge towards the right of the lane to just, give yourself a little more clearance from the cars on your left. The Tesla, on the other hand, aggressively centers itself in the middle of the lane. So at least for me, it felt like I was really close to the guy next to me. It was one of those things where I was cringing and wanted to take the wheel and grab it. But anyway, it works. It's just aggressive about that. And under those circumstances, I would much rather it kind of shifted itself over to the right a little, because there's not really any danger of being further right, but there's a danger to being further left. Even more extreme, and fortunately the rep warned me about this beforehand because I would have freaked out otherwise. But we got up, so we were in the right-hand lane, and a merge lane came in, like an entrance lane, right? And so suddenly the lane itself became almost 2 widths wide. So instead of hugging the left-hand line like it should have, the Tesla went whoop, and it moved into the middle. So suddenly it's in the middle of 2 lanes of, merging traffic. And then as the lane shrunk down, it moved itself back in again. That felt very, very wrong. First of all, it just was like, what are you doing? But second of all, it's like by not hugging that left-hand line a little bit more, it felt like if you had one of those kind of drivers, let's say an aggressive driver, they might have attempted to kind of pull into that lane as you were over there, and that could cause an accident or something bad to happen. So, even though I was just talking about how it should normally hug the right-hand lane, I think in that circumstance where it sees a merge, and it understood it because it had like a little arrow, so it understood that it was a merge situation, but instead of kind of staying over to the left and allowing that lane to go away, it went whoop, and it moved over, and then it shifted itself back over. So not the greatest. Definitely feels like a work in progress still. I also noticed that it was really annoying to have your hands on the wheel for full self-driving. So the way it is it will start flashing blue at you if you don't have your hand on the wheel, and just give it a little bit of something once in a while. It kind of takes away the whole point of full self-driving in my mind. I mean, the deal is you're not supposed to have your hand on the wheel. You're not supposed to have your foot on the accelerator. It should be doing it itself, at least on the highway. That would be nice. So, yeah, I was not very pleased about that. It was really annoying to have to keep, jiggling the steering wheel once in a while. On that line, it was also really freaky because I told it I wanted to get off on an exit, and I guess maybe I needed to click the turn signal once or something like that. I needed to tell it to confirm that I was going off, but I didn't, so I didn't know exactly what I was doing. So in order to take control of the car, I really had to jerk it, and it really freaked out my family, because when it went from like autopilot back to manual control, it was not a gentle thing. It was like, wha-bam! So, and I knew what I was doing because I grabbed the wheel and jerked it, but for everybody else, it felt like one of those like out of control things, like, suddenly you realize you're about to hit somebody and you like jerk out of the way or something. It was that kind of level of aggressiveness. So it did not make people happy about that. So again, getting in and out of autopilot, getting in was fine. Getting out of autopilot seemed a lot more kind of jerky, and it was not a good experience. So I didn't appreciate that particularly. Overall impressions. I'm going to go through this in no particular order, so it's not like good and bad are lined up. I'm just going to kind of list things off that I thought about. Number 1, absolutely love the acceleration. So much fun. Love the sporty handling. Definitely the best part of the car was the driving experience. It feels really, really good to drive. It's a lot of fun. I also actually really enjoyed the regenerative braking after I got used to the fact. I know there would probably be a lot of people who wouldn't, but I enjoy driving stick shift cars, which are very responsive. It felt a lot like you downshift and you let off the clutch and the car kind of, slows down. So I enjoyed that feeling. I know there's probably a lot of people who wouldn't. I also enjoyed the fact that I could see the little battery indicator going up when I would do that because it was charging things up again. I will definitely be sad if I purchase this car not to have Apple CarPlay integrated into it, and I assume if you had Android, you'd feel the same way about that. Tesla does not seem to have any plans to integrate Apple CarPlay. They have their own software and everything, and I'm sure it's fine. But I really have gotten kind of used to having my phone completely integrated with my car, so I would definitely miss that. The car felt big enough to transport a family of 4 on a trip with a good deal of luggage. So I felt that was a good thing. I was worried it was going to be super small. You always think about electric cars, at least for somebody my age, and you think, oh man, the thing's going to be puny and it's not going to have enough space. But this definitely was a spacious car. And when you think about the fact that it's getting over 300 miles on a tank on a charge, that's actually pretty cool that it has that much space and it's that heavy and it can do all of that. I also really, really liked the hold feature. So the fact that not only would the car slow down, but it would actually stop and it would hold. So again, never having to touch the brakes, super good. Love that. I would definitely recommend spending the $1,000 instead of getting a paint color. I would spend $1,000 getting the tow package. The big reason why is because, unfortunately, due to the way the roof is built and the glass and everything, you can't put rails onto the Model Y. And that's too bad, because it would be really nice to be able to put rails on and put like a Thule, rack or something on top. So I think instead what you need to do is you need to get the tow hitch, and you could mount bicycles onto it or put a cooler back there or something like that. But it would give you more space, and I think that's more economical. Again, if cost is a factor. If not, then spend whatever the hell you want. Get a Model X in that case, right? But if it is, I would recommend spending the money on the tow hitch rather than the paint. Autopilot, perfectly good, perfectly useful, works well, knows a lot of what's going on. Full self-driving, not ready for prime time yet. That's really unfortunate, but that's my, judgment. Again, just a very short 20-30 minute test drive, so I can't give you all the ins and outs, but certainly even on the highway it felt like it wasn't doing what it needed to do. Supposedly software 2.0 is coming out very soon. I know Elon Musk has reputedly said it's going to be substantially better, and again, I'm going to have an episode on this shortly. But I think until it's proven to be better, I wouldn't spend the money on it. It just seems like a very expensive boondoggle at this point. So as a bonus, because they didn't have the Performance Model Y with them, they let us drive the Performance Model 3, and we just took it around kind of like some little back roads around the Tesla dealership. Whew, man, was that thing fun. Mostly I just put it in track mode and just tried the acceleration.
1, 2, 3, go.
Stop!
We got up to 40 miles an hour in 1 second.
So as you can see from that, or maybe as you can hear from my wife's reaction, the acceleration is absolutely crazy in this thing. It's really cool. Like, the whole display is like showing you the battery status and the engine status and everything. So I'm sure if you drove it really aggressively for a long time around a track or something, you'd start getting oranges and all this stuff, and it would be telling you it's overheating or something. It'd be super cool to drive it that way. But I really, really loved it, which is a shame because I don't think we can afford that. It's not the practical car to get, but man, was it a lot of fun. I was like, oh, if I just had the money, I would buy a performance car for sure. And finally, to buy or not to buy. So let's list this in a little bit of order. On the good end of things, you're going green. So non-emissions vehicle, right? Hopefully clean energy you're producing it with. Heck, if you get a solar roof, you're like totally green, right? So that's cool. Love that. Super fast acceleration. Even the long range one was really poppy, and of course the performance was out of control. You will save a ton of money on fuel and maintenance, and again, you can see this other video where I talk about total cost of ownership. You get the cool factor. You're driving a Tesla. I mean, you have to include that. People do respect the fact that you're driving a Tesla, so that's pretty neat. Autopilot is a very nice driver assist package. I really appreciated Autopilot. It gave me great confidence. I felt it did what it needed to do well. There's super technology in the car. I love the fact that there's fewer moving parts. It's electric engine, etc., etc. The technology package on the touchscreen and all. Just really, really cool stuff. It makes a techie geek like me super happy. The car should last a really, really long time. I think the batteries are the only thing that's a little questionable, but already we're seeing 300,000-400,000 miles out of those things, which is frankly longer than I'm going to keep a car anyway, so that's super cool. And finally, over-the-air updates, right? So your car will get better as you own it. It's not like you buy it and then it downgrades. It will actually upgrade to some extent over time. The bad. Number one bad, it is really expensive. And that's the big thing that's holding us back right now. So that's number one bad. Number two, full self-driving is just not ready for prime time yet, and it was one of the big reasons to get a Tesla. In fact, it was specifically the reason why I wanted to get a Tesla in the first place way back years ago, but it's still definitely not ready for prime time. The lack of Apple CarPlay integration or Android integration is kind of a shame. I have a feeling I'd get used to it, but I'm paying for all these subscriptions and all this other stuff from my phone. I really would like to be able to just integrate it with the car like I do in the CX-5. And new batteries. Is this going to have an Osborne effect, right? Should I wait until the next big thing comes out? Ooh, then you're always chasing the next big thing. So, it's a bad, but I think that's always going to be a bad with new technology. So the answer, we're still on the fence, honestly, even about which direction to go. We could sell our Mini and get a Model 3 extended range, or we could sell our CX-5 and get a Model Y long range. So either one of those is an option at this point. We would definitely purchase the car. Again, I did an episode up here. Because the resale is so high, it doesn't make any sense to lease it over purchasing it because you get money back at the end. But the expense is super, super high. And so that's a really big downside. So I don't know, you get really high monthly bills, but at the end you get some money back. We would love your thoughts. Tell us, what do you think? Well, should we buy now? Should we wait a few months? Should we just wait for the Cybertruck? What do you think we should do? I would love to hear in the comments. Let us know what you think about that. And speaking of that, definitely make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more of these fun things. And definitely ask questions in the comments or at my email address, which is drknowitallknows@gmail.com. Till next time, bye-bye.